How's it going, everyone? Dr. Clinton Lee here, physical therapist and athlete for Juggernaut Training Systems. Today I'm going to be talking about low back pain. So there are probably a myriad number of reasons why someone might be experiencing low back pain, but for the purpose of today's video, I'm going to be talking about two main things, which is lumbar spine flexion and lumbar spine extension. Generally speaking, someone can have either an intolerance to lumbar spine flexion, or in other words, when their backs are in this position, or they can have an intolerance to extension, or in other words, when their bodies are like so. So something that I look for in my evaluations with powerlifting athletes who are experiencing low back pain is to see what degree of lumbar spine flexion or extension they can tolerate, if any at all. And the goal of rehab is to gradually expose them to the positions that their bodies are kind of apprehensive about getting into, for the purpose of eventually loading those positions and building a little bit more resilience so that they can get back into deadlifting and squatting without pain. So it's probably not surprising that people who experience pain from a deadlifting related injury have difficulty putting their spines into flex positions. So this next exercise I'm about to demonstrate is an easy way for people to experiment with getting into that flex position without hopefully flaring up their pain too much. I'm going to demonstrate that exercise now. I'm going to be in a seated position with my feet about a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. I'm at the edge of my seat, and I'm just going to reach my hands down and underneath the chair and then return to my starting position. Different people are going to experience different ranges of motion that they can comfortably tolerate. If you feel like this is as far as you can go, no need to push that beyond your pain tolerance point. And what I'm basically looking for here is to see whether or not the pain increases, decreases, or has no effect upon the low back pain. If the pain decreases, obviously that's a sign that this is a safe exercise to do and that this exercise might be useful in the overall rehab plan of the athlete. In the circumstances where the pain can increase, we're looking for a couple of things. If the pain increases, but then upon cessation of the exercise, if the pain returns to your baseline level of pain, then that's an indication that you can probably proceed to a certain degree. And in that case, it's just a matter of finding the right dosage of repetitions and range of motion to do so that the person doesn't flare up their pain too much, but can still, again, gradually expose themselves to the position that their body doesn't like. So the next lumbar spine flexion exercise that I'm going to demonstrate is standing flexion. As you can see, I have this platform in front of me. I'm going to stand with my feet about shoulder width apart. I'm going to keep my knees locked. I'm going to bend over at my waist, place my palms onto the top of this block here, and then come back up. There's a couple of different variables to play around with here. The further away you step from the box, generally speaking, the more easy it might be. The closer your feet are, the more difficult it might be. And of course, you can adjust the height of the surface that you're touching to increase or decrease the difficulty. As I mentioned before, we're looking to see how your symptoms change with these repeated motions, whether it's getting better, whether it has no effect, or whether it gets a little bit worse. And just a reminder, if it gets a little bit worse, wait a little bit and see how that pain changes, if at all. If the pain gets a little bit worse, but then returns to baseline almost immediately, that's a yellow light to proceed. There's a certain amount that you can do where it shouldn't be harmful and should actually have a therapeutic effect with the proper dosage of repetitions. So let's say the athlete is tolerating repeated standing flexion very comfortably. I would then progress them to this next exercise, which is a sustained flexion with a little bit of leg movement too. I also like to call this exercise single ladies, and you'll see why. So I'm going to get into a flex position here. My body weight is resting onto my hands, and I'm going to bend my right leg while my left leg remains straight, and vice versa. So my body remains in this flexed over position, and as I bend and extend my legs, I'm just introducing a little bit of movement into my lumbar spine And this is one way to kind of help increase someone's comfort level with being in a flex position at their lumbar spine. Usually I have them do that for 16 to 20 reps, as in 8 to 10 reps for each leg. So some athletes presenting with low back pain will be completely fine with lumbar spine flexion movements, but they won't be able to tolerate extension movements so well. One of the ways that I like to reintroduce lumbar spine extension is with the following drill. I'll have them stand with their feet about shoulder width apart, and I'll ask them to place their hands on their lower back like so. And I'll ask them to just kind of push their hips forward while leaning back as far as they comfortably can. I'm kind of leaning my body weight onto my hands here. It's giving me a little bit of support, which can feel comfortable to people because they may feel a little apprehensive in this low back region. This will be one of the exercises that I'll test the waters with and to see how their bodies respond to these repeated motions in extension. But let's say they're tolerating standing back extensions very well. I'll then put them on the floor, have them do repeated press-up motions. If you're familiar with yoga, they call this a cobra. So I'm gonna ask them to start off lying on their stomach with their hands like so. And you're just using your arms to press your back up into an extended position. Let's say the person cannot tolerate this very well because this is too much extension that they can handle at the moment. Sometimes I'll just have them move their hands a little bit forward and a little bit out. And then that changes the angle and the magnitude of the extension that occurs in their lower backs. I'll have them do this at least 10 times and then ask them how their pain changes, if at all. How their pain changes will inform what to do for the next progression or regression. And for the last progression in this series, I'll ask them to do a tall plank to a cobra if they're tolerating the prone press-ups very well. And that looks like this. You're gonna start off in a tall plank like so, or the top of a push-up position. From this position, you're lowering your hips down to the ground. So I end up in a cobra position, and then I'm gonna return to my starting position like that. So as you can see, the end point is very similar to the end point of the prone press-up. There's just a little bit more motor control involved here because I'm going up into a tall plank. And this might be helpful for people who may be able to progress from the prone press-ups. It's an excellent warm-up. It's an excellent drill to perform at the conclusion of someone's training and may be able to help mitigate some of the symptoms involved with low back pain. So there you have it. Those are two of some of the general ways that I look at low back pain and to see whether or not we can kind of mitigate some of the symptoms involved with being into either a flex position that's painful or an extended position that's painful. Once again, ideally you want to be able to see a qualified healthcare practitioner to be able to diagnose what's precisely going on in your back and to make sure things are safe to do. But if you've been cleared by such a professional and it's okay to kind of exercise and to train to some degree, give these exercises a shot and see if it helps with your symptoms. Try to determine whether your pain is more so with flex positions or with extended positions. And how your body responds to that should help inform what to do afterwards. So thanks for watching. If you like this content, make sure you like the video and hit subscribe and drop a comment in case you have any suggestions about what kind of videos you want to see next, what kind of injuries related to powerlifting or weightlifting that you'd like for us to address. So yeah, thanks again for watching and we'll see you next time.